In a world where visibility is everything, one car dares to take things to the next level. Meet the BMW iX facelift, the first car to give your camera a bath, whether you like it or not. Well, at least BMW is keeping things fresh, literally. But beyond its quirky obsession with hygiene, the BMW iX facelift actually brings some serious upgrades. More power, more range, and more importantly, finally an entry-level iX for the Americans. So today we're diving deep into all the changes, what's new, what's improved, and most importantly, is it the electric SUV we want to drive? Let's hit the road and find out. So why am I excited about the BMW iX xDrive45 considering it's actually the base model in the entire iX lineup? For one reason only, pricing. It starts in the US at $76,000, and that puts it in a different class compared to the iX60 and iXM70, because if you're getting some considerable discounts on the car and if you can take advantage of some tax credits, this SUV actually becomes quite affordable. As much as I love the power of the iXM60 and now the iXM70, granted, it's very rarely that I actually get to use all of those specs. The iX45 becomes more of the perfect daily driver, not only because it's affordable, but also because it really packs a lot of features and power still. It makes 402 horsepower, that's about 82 horsepower more than the outgoing iX40, which was sold in Europe. 516 pounds-feet of torque, enough to take you from 0 to 60 in about 4.9 seconds. That's 1 second faster than the outgoing iX40. But that's just half the story, because the battery pack, it's also been upgraded in the iX45. It now comes with a roughly 100 kilowatts-hour battery pack, which offers a WLTP range between 490 and 602 kilometers. On the EPA standard, you're getting from 305 to 374 miles. In my opinion, the psychological barrier with a lot of EVs, it's the 300 miles mark. This is why the iXM60 was often touted as not being sufficient with its 285 miles, which has now been improved also in the iXM70 to go over 300 miles. But with this car reaching 374 miles, that will absolutely give you some additional range and will reduce the times that you have to charge weekly, especially if you daily commute this car. Speaking of charging, it doesn't get the full capacity of the iX60 and iXM70. Of course, BMW's got to differentiate between their products. So this one only charges with 175 kilowatts capability. That's enough from 10 to 80% in about 34 minutes, actually about 1 minute longer than the iX40. The reason for that? Simply because the battery pack, it's a little bit bigger. That's one of the main complaints when it comes to electric vehicles. It's really their charging capability, even more than the actual range. Because a lot of the competitors, thanks to their 800 volts architecture, they can actually offer significantly higher charging capabilities. Of course, BMW wasn't going to invest a lot of money in the iX because based on what I know, this is a one-time generation car that's not going to be renewed. Instead, we'll be getting some other BMW electric SUVs, including the Neue Klasse, which will come with enhanced charging capability and a lot more range.
Shoot, not again. My wife's gonna kill me. Wait, I have an idea. Finally, I know what this feature's for.
So let's talk about driving dynamics. Here is a nice stretch of road where I can push the car a little bit, and I'm gonna be switching to the sport mode, so we're all sporty here today. Let's go to sport. Thing dials up a little bit. Can feel the suspension stiffened up, the steering, a lot more feedback coming from the road. It's actually quite direct, even though it's a lot softer than in other BMWs. It's an SUV in the end. But hey, if you want to have some fun, look at this. You can absolutely push this car. The brake regeneration in the car has not changed. So for example, I can do the one pedal feel, I can do the adaptive, or I can set my own settings from low to high. I can basically go right now into the one pedal mode. And what's that going to do? It's going to have the most aggressive brake regeneration. It will refill the battery a lot more than the other modes, and it's going to help quite a bit, especially when you're driving like this, because you don't have to use the brakes too much. You can let the car brake for you, and then you turn in and take off. Of course, a little bit of body roll, but nobody buys this car to show off. They're just buying it to go to the grocery store or to school with the kids or just take some road trips. But hey, you want to have some fun? You can absolutely do this. Look at this car, how it turns in. So nice. And you floor it. Here we go. Of course, compared to the iX-M7, it's a lot slower. I mean, that car was a beast. Yesterday, I had to stop at some point because I was getting car sick. I was pushing the car so hard and braking from high speeds and accelerating quickly with that and using the launch control. It was just a little bit too much fun. And at some point, I was like, ugh, need to take a break. But this car is just great. It's a nice balance between power and driving dynamics. Not too much oversteer. It's great. It's got a nice balance. Of course, the battery pack in the floor helps quite a bit. You know, brakes are great. Of course, you can get the M Sport brakes with the M Sport package if you want to. But overall, they do bite nicely. I'm probably going to recommend this iX45 over the other ones, mostly because of the price point. See, this is the time where I really wish I had the M Sport seats because I'm sliding quite a bit. You can see my body really sliding versus in the iX-M70, I was nicely planted into those seats. The side bolster support was great, and this is exactly why I'm calling these the bus seats, because they're just too flat. Not enough support for a car that's supposed to be a little bit fun. With the iX-M70, I said that more is better. I would say with this car, less is actually better because you're getting a lot for your money and you don't feel like you're missing out on too many things. Of course, each one of you will have different preferences when it comes to the packages that you want to have in your car, and that's fair. But for someone like myself, or I usually don't like to over-spec my cars. I've had i3s that were pretty much base stock. I have an i4, which is base. Sometimes that's all you need. I mean, I had an iX-M60 for nearly a year and it was fully spec'd. It was fantastic. I enjoyed all the features, but I really found myself at some point just taking advantage of a couple of features, like the highway assistant was quite useful. But other than that, there weren't too many things that I felt like I really needed in the car. I was told that on the iX-M70, they've changed the travel on the accelerator, essentially to be more aggressive. So when you floor the M70, you will actually feel it compared to the M60. But I have a feeling that on this one, the power is a little bit more progressive, because when I do this, I feel like the power is slowly building up, so you don't get the full power instantly, which is quite nice, because once again, a lot of people do get car sick because of this massive acceleration, but this one just builds up a little bit nicer, or maybe it's just the fact that it's under power compared to the M70, and that's me feeling that instead of the actual accelerator being adjusted. We'll find out. This air suspension is just great. It absorbs the shocks in the road quite nicely. It travels very well over imperfect surfaces or over different elevations. I'm at 89% right now and 415 kilometers left. Granted, I was pushing the car a little bit, so that's going to affect the range. The true test will really come when we get the car for a week or longer, where we can do some scientific testing and not actually having fun with the car, because that's going to affect the range. So we will see if the 374 miles is achievable. I've had a chance to drive the iX60 prototype with just the base suspension, the steel suspension, and of course it was a lot bouncier, especially on some roads in South Carolina. I could feel the difference instantly between the suspensions, and without a doubt, that should be the #1 upgrade you should put in your BMW iX. I mean, even here, going over a small speed bump, you can barely feel it. When it comes to some of the most significant changes on the iX facelift, it's not just the front fascia on the base models, which you've seen already in our previous videos. Basically, you're getting the slanted graphics inside the kidney grille, which is now illuminated. You're also getting some high-tech LEDs with double slanted headlamps as well, and a slightly redesigned front bumper and rear bumper as well. I guess the biggest visual change comes from inside the car, and even though this one doesn't have that, this is the base package, you've seen it in the iX M70 video that we just put out. So let me recap that. You will have a choice to get either the hexagonal shaped steering wheel like in this car, which you've had it before, or you can go for the round steering wheel with the M Sport package. Part of the M Sport package, you can also get the car with M Sport seats, which can be customized to even include the M stripes on the seat, and they look fantastic. The other thing that I love in this upgrade is the fact that you're getting a little bit of a longer seat. I'm 6'2", 6'3" tall, and with my previous iX M60, I've complained quite a bit about the length of the actual seat. And it wasn't just the length, it was also the angle. As you can see in this seat, it kind of slouches downwards a little bit, which essentially what happens, it doesn't give you enough thigh support right there. The real test that I like to do with this seat is really to put the phone between my legs, and most of the time it will actually fall down on the floor. I'm actually happy that BMW included the base seats in the 45 so I can test it, because I can tell you right now, driving them back to back, that the M Sport seats are the way to go. Inside, you do have a lot of options when it comes to trim, and of course you can customize your iX quite a bit. There are a few things that might be specific just to the high-end models like the iX M70, but overall you can definitely spec this car pretty similar with the more expensive iX options. Naturally, it does vary from market to market. The one change inside the car I wish BMW would have addressed, it's also this floating cubby. That's the second thing I've been complaining about, because it's a little bit cumbersome to actually reach down here to grab your drinks or even to store things. But once again, you know, if you're going to change this, it will require significant changes in design inside the car, and that's going to be very expensive for just a facelifted model, which has probably a shelf life of another 2 to 3 years. In the end, the bigger story with the iX facelift and also with the 45 model, it's really the increased efficiency of the car. They've improved the range not only through the larger battery pack, but also through some efficiency measures implemented by new hardware changes. For example, the electric motors now have these silicon carbide inverters, which account for about 1/3 of the increased efficiency compared to the iX40 models. Even the new headlights, even though they look more techy and digital, they're actually about 10% more efficient than the outgoing headlights. Other efficiency improvements comes also from the A-rated rolling tires. That's a major component in the range of an EV. I'm riding today on 23-inch wheels, which is probably the least efficient tire that you can get on the iX, but you can spec your cars anywhere from 20 to 23 inches in size. And this one has the BMW individual wheels, which they look quite cool. But once again, that's going to have an effect on the efficiency and also on the ride quality. Speaking of the ride quality, you can definitely order the base model iX45 with the air suspension, and that's probably one of the options, features, upgrades that I suggest anyone to take in the iX, because it will make the ride quality a lot better. I've been calling the iX the 7 Series of the BMW SUV lineup, and that's not an exaggeration. If you get to drive this car, not only you will enjoy this very calm and serene drive and a very quiet cabin, but you'll also appreciate how comfortable the car really is over long distances, and especially over potholes like I have plenty of them in Chicago. Compared to the iX40, the 45 model does have a slightly adjusted suspension, so the software application has been modified to cope with the additional weight that comes with the 45. The additional weight, it's because of the larger battery pack. In the M70, you will absolutely notice that the gap between comfort and sport has been extended quite a bit, and that was by design. That's something that BMW likes to do with some of their newer models, and I've been talking about this quite a bit in all my previous videos. In this 45, the gap, it's a little bit smaller, So you might not actually notice it at first. You might have to use the 23-inch wheels and tires and go over some imperfect roads to be able to maybe tell the difference between comfort and sport. This particular car is also equipped with a level 2 and level 2 plus assistant driving features. Naturally, it only works in certain countries, so you can use it in the US and in Germany, and essentially you can have the highway assistant, which gives you hands-free driving, unlimited up to certain speeds depending on the country where you're in. The acceleration in the car, it's quite good. I mean, 400 horsepower with that instant torque, it's nothing to laugh at. No slouch either. I mean, just look at that. Basically, you just floor the pedal and it simply takes off. Do you have to appreciate the engineering that goes into these cars to make them actually feel lighter than they really are, and definitely smaller than they really are, because size-wise, the iX, of course, it's a quite large car, somewhere in between an X5 and an X7, of course, a little bit closer to the X5 maybe, but nonetheless, it is not a small car. The design might look actually minimalistic because of this dashboard, quite simple. Of course, the lack of physical buttons, something that annoys me, and it will always annoy me. I'm gonna try to move on from that, but the fact that it's pushed forward quite a bit, you do have a lot of space here. It looks clean. This screen, it's the previous kind of generation screens. It's gonna go away. We're gonna get that single unit in some of the new BMWs, not in the iX. But nonetheless, I'm used to it by now. I'm used to using the touch controls and the voice. So I'm actually coming around to enjoy this xDrive 8.5 or 9 in newer models. Now, city driving, pretty effortless. I mean, this is the right time to switch into the comfort mode. Of course, you can customize this quite a bit. There are a lot of modes: expressive, relax, efficient. You can even have a max efficient range mode, which essentially will reduce the top speed. They will actually reduce some of the comfort features to make sure that you get the maximum range out of your car. That's something that I use quite a bit, especially in wintertime in Chicago. So let's go to the personal and more comfortable mode. You can see everything changes inside the car. You can customize the car with iconic sounds to have different sounds in all the modes. That hasn't really changed compared to the outgoing iX. If you're an iX aficionado or a BMW aficionado, of course, these details might be a little bit boring, but there are a lot of new customers watching these videos for the first time. So this is why I'm trying to make a point to reiterate some of these features and options that might seem obvious to a lot of us. Since I'm on the highways, let me go around 80 kilometers per hour. We're gonna do a sound test, just kind of have an idea how isolated the cabin is. So there you go, about 61, 62 decibels compared to 56, 57 that I recorded yesterday in the iX M70. Once again, larger tires, they do make a difference when it comes to efficiency and sound, and not in a positive way. So even though they look cooler with your car because they close the gaps, the wheel gaps, and it looks a lot sportier, you don't need to get the 23s, get a 21 or 22 and you'll be fine with that option. Speaking of options, BMW has refreshed their color palette as well. I did get a note on that from the BMW product team telling me that not all the colors are available at Market Lounge, and some of the colors might not actually be available in all the markets. So you might want to check with a local market, local dealership to find out if a particular color is being offered on the iX. But for example, the lineup includes right now the Arctic Gray Blue Metallic, Frozen Deep Gray, Frozen Pure Gray, which will come in June. Then you have Tanzanite Blue, which will be available in April. Dune Gray, new color, you've seen it on the X3. Then you have Aventurine Red. Then Carbon Black, which is available with the M Sport package. Frozen, also only with the M Sport package, and reserved for the iX M70. Mineral White, Alpine White, Sophista Gray, which is available for the 45 model. Black Sapphire, Storm Bay, and Space Silver, which is coming in July. I've mentioned these questions in the iX M70 video, so in case you haven't watched that, I'm gonna reiterate them right here as well. A lot of people ask me to address some of these concerns that I've had with the BMW team, and one of them has to do with the length of the brake pedal arm. So according to some customers, and I've seen some photos that somebody have shared, if you have big feet, if you're wearing big shoes, I have a size 12, 13, 46, 47, so I'm assuming I fall under that category. Essentially, your toes might get stuck in between the brake pedal and the arm, and I was asked to find out if that has changed. Unfortunately, it has not. It's exactly the same design as before. The next question I've got was regarding the transparency of the glass. Essentially, I was told that yes, it's a little bit more transparent in the clear mode, but that's not something that allegedly happened with the facelift. It actually came in production a lot earlier. They weren't able to give me an exact production date. I believe it was sometimes in 2023. Once again, it's one of those changes BMW doesn't communicate, which I wish they did, because a lot of people do care about these little details. Can you turn off DSC in the new iX facelift? Yes. Next important question, the tow hitch. A lot of people have seen some videos from the pre-drive. Essentially, we had a chance to see the cars before they were unveiled. We had a chance to drive a prototype, and those were equipped with an electric-powered tow hitch. Since we filmed the car in the US, the assumption was, yes, it's coming to the US, but unfortunately, it is not. Just like all the other BMWs, you're not going to get an electric power hitch in the US, only in other parts of the world, definitely in Europe. Instead, you'll get a preparation in the bumper for the tow hitch, and essentially you can install your own style as needed. So now let's answer the final question. Should you be buying the BMW iX45, the 60 and the M70? And that's a tough one. So in my case, because I'm frugal, I guess it's a nice way of putting it, you know, or calling myself cheap, I always go for the most efficient pricing option when it comes to a BMW car. So for me, the iX45 ticks all the boxes. It has everything that I need for a car to be a daily driver, to be a family car. So this will be my first choice. But overall, the BMW iX, it's a very compelling product. They've done some really meaningful upgrades. I'm quite happy that BMW has actually listened to some of the feedback that we've had, and they've addressed this, and they've gave this iX some new life in it, because it does deserve it. I mean, sales have been great initially, then they fell a little bit because of the downturn in the EV market. But overall, I still think that the BMW iX, it's the best electric SUV they offer today, and in many ways, one of their best cars they offer. If I had a choice between an iX and an X5 or an X7, if I don't need the space of an X7, I would absolutely, every day of the week, pick the iX, with a caveat that it's nice to have your own home charging, so you don't have to rely too much on DC fast charging, because it's not that fast. So next time you see me, if you ask me what's my favorite car, you already know the answer. The 2026 BMW iX with the new seats, new steering wheel, and more power and range. Thanks for watching.